Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is a tremendous honor to be back at the Stanford Humanities Center this year. I was here as a Jabal dissertation fellow many years ago. And it's a particular honor to represent this incredible cohort of fellows. My research intersects with many of their fantastic projects: music and performance, questions of representation in different media, the nexus of gender, race, sexuality, and social class, the Age of Enlightenment and the American, French, and Haitian revolutions, military and the war, geopolitics of space, indigeneity, slavery, and the African diaspora, the ways of knowing and lived experience of those silenced in the archive, people whose identities are minoritized and whose humanity has been disrespected, but whose lives can tell incredible true stories of violence, dispossession, and erasure, but also resistance, creativity, world-making, path-breaking, and love. Being here at the Stanford Humanities Center has been a transformative experience for my project, thanks to the brilliant minds of the graduate students, postdocs, faculty, and staff. And here I'd like to give a particular shout out to Kelda Jameson, who directs the fellowship program. Her ideas about my project were key for the direction that I've taken this year. So you are not alone if you have never heard of Joseph Bologne, the Chevalier de Saint-George, let alone his Black enslaved mother, Nanon, or his white social climbing, plantation-owning father, Georges. Most people have never heard of the Chevalier, and the very few who have only know him as the Black Mozart. Yet in his time, his astounding military and musical talents and his meteoric rise from slavery in Guadeloupe to stardom made him a household name across Europe and in the Atlantic world. He was written about by the second president of the United States, John Adams, championed by Queen Marie Antoinette of France and the Prince of Wales in England, and jealously admired by Mozart himself. Calling Saint-Georges the Black Mozart is part of the problem, of course, not the least because Saint-Georges was quite a bit older than Mozart, and as musicologists and historians have been able to show, after encountering him multiple times in Paris, Mozart was so inspired that he actually took some of Saint-Georges' melodies and incorporated them into his own pieces. So please, if you will, let us call this man by his name. I'm going to play you a short excerpt of the first movement, an allegro moderato, of Saint-Georges' Violin Concerto, Opus 5, number 2 in A major, a composition that represents some of his finest work during one of the highest moments in his life and career. In 1773, Saint-Georges became the first violin concertmaster or conductor and composer of one of the premier orchestras in Europe, the Concert des Amateurs, leading the ensemble to its highest level of expertise and notoriety. I'm bringing us into the scintillating violin solo that Saint-Georges would have played himself. And you'll hear him experimenting with the outer limits of the instrument through bold bowing that exploits the strength and stability of the reverse camber of the new bow. And I'll also indicate to you the passage that Mozart stole from this piece for his Sinfonia Concertante of 1779, just after living with Saint-Georges in Paris from July 5th to September 11th, 1778. to hear that again, but how about a hand for Saint-George? So in my book, From Slavery to Stardom, Freedom, Family Freedom, and the First Black Celebrity, Joseph Bologne, Chevalier de Saint-George, as I've reconceived it this year, I aim to shatter the traditional mold of the great man history. Despite Saint-George's education and fame, his and his family's story is preserved only in scattered archival fragments. As scholars like Michel Rolfe-Trouillot, Sadia Hartman, who was here earlier this year at the center, Jennifer Morgan and Marisa Fuentes have shown, the archive represents a tool of power whose contents reveal centuries-long efforts to dehumanize Black life during the era of chattel slavery. Recovering the experiences of his family requires triangulating deep archival and archaeological study across 3 continents, intuitive and compelling speculation or critical fabulation, and an experimental style of writing and reading, a combination that I refer to as historiographic poesis. Embracing the poetic, both in its literary style and in the inventiveness required to breathe life back into the gaps in the archive. From Slavery to Stardom introduces a new approach to historical life writing that I call geobiographical. And I'd like to give a shout out to Ato Kwesen, Christy and Xiong, and the attendants and participants of the Postcolonial Spatialities workshop. Thank you to Carol for her support of all the workshops. They were instrumental in supporting me in creating, as I walked out this concept to the public. So my book's narrative is grounded in critical Black geographies, and it is spatially driven, comprising detailed historical reconstructions of lived experience in specific spaces, allowing readers to feel and to understand what it was like to exist and to pursue life in the places that Saint-George and his family inhabited. Each of the book's 15 chapters plunges into a distinct 18th century world. The Caribbean sugar plantation, the transatlantic passenger ship, the slave port of Bordeaux, the streets of Black Paris, exclusive schools for aristocrats, royal palaces and noblemen's chateaus, European orchestra halls, opera houses, and theaters, battles of the French Revolution, and more. Since the archival trail runs dead far too often for these individuals, I turn to the past conditional tense, and here I'm referring to Lisa Lowe, and thank you, Eve, for reminding me of this, to reconstruct what could have been, including 2 possible endings for the story of Nanon, Saint-George's mother. From Slavery to Stardom is much more than a biography of the Chevalier de Saint-George. It's the story of what Emma Rothschild has called the inner life of empires. It's the story of a family's treacherous and transformative journey through space as they confronted the monumental forces of their time: chattel slavery, racial policing, patriarchal oppression, and the barriers of social caste. The 3 interconnected tales of Nanon, Georges, and the Chevalier, the saga of Black womanhood and motherhood under slavery, the unflinching ambitions of an underdog father to a biracial son, and the brilliant talents and tenacity of the Atlantic world's first Black celebrity, form a story of human strength, strategy, contradiction, and kinship in the face of injustices whose legacies persist in our modern world. Thank you.